Good afternoon. We are living in Novueval Times, and I am running for president, Matt, 2024. The main issue I mean to tackle is to make W one syllable. And as I see it, the choices are wah, wah, way, we, why, whoa, or woo. So, my choice would be woo, but you can vote on it. Wagers accepted. But beyond that, what I need to do is expand the conversation in the Libertarian Party concerning what libertarians should be talking about. And we all know what the Republicans and the Democrats are talking about. And I think we should strive to distance ourselves from all of that because there are things that are much more important, bigger fish to fry, things that have been problems in this country for decades, even centuries, that are just not talked about at all. Or if they are, they're talked about in a superficial way, like commentary and opinion. And in terms of that, I would say, for example, the Electoral College. People really don't. I have never, as a matter of fact, heard anyone discuss the fact that the 1929 Reapportionment Act changed the numbers of the Electoral College. So, as skewed as it was already, that made it even more skewed. Nobody ever talks about that. And I think part of the problem is they don't know. I think another part of the problem is the ones that do know don't want that to enter the conversation because they have a viewpoint which they don't want to get distracted with history and facts. They want you to keep focused on their narrow viewpoint without taking everything into consideration. And there's a lot of that going on when you're talking about the Electoral College, when you're talking about the education system. Almost everybody has a viewpoint on that. Do we need more government intervention? Do we need more money? Do we need the government to get the heck out? Do we need to just let cities and counties take care of their own? And when you look at the history of the U.S. education system and how it was formed, what it's based on, more or less, little of that ever enters the conversation because that distracts from the viewpoint that these people are trying to inculcate in you. And that is very unfortunate because the more informed we are, the better decisions we can make. And a great part of that, too, is the fact that our representatives do not represent us. There is, well, just do a search either on Bing or DuckDuckGo. Don't use Google. Google is evil. But do a YouTube search. And yeah, I know YouTube's owned by Google, and that's where our hands are tied. But hey, go to Vimeo, go anywhere. I don't care. The thing is, you do a search on science shows our representatives do not represent us, or science shows elected officials do not represent us, or anything along those lines. You know, you put a couple of keywords in and the stuff is going to come up. Studies show that most of the time, representatives do not vote what their constituents want. That doesn't enter into it at all, most of the time. And I'm saying like somewhere around 90% of the time, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but most of the time, they're voting per what the money they got to get elected wants them to do. So our representatives, our government, basically is not our government. That's gone. That is just totally gone. This government is not the government of the people of the United States of America. That is no more. That is no longer. We do not, in fact, have a government. Which you're probably wondering, well, if we don't have a government, why are you running for president? Why are you running for the presidential nomination of the Libertarian Party? Believe me, I'm not in any danger of getting their nomination. I am just running so if I get enough notoriety, I can bring a fresh viewpoint to the conversation, which is this government is broken. And along those lines, it is taking the society and culture down with it. And if we can, we need to stop that. I believe we can't. I believe it's too late. There's nothing we can do, and it's going to crash and burn. And I don't think it's just a governmental thing. I don't think it's a cultural thing. I don't think it's just this, that, or the other, all the pieces that make up our great society. I think it's all going down. And I don't think it's all going down like some point in the future. It has already started. But we'll get to that. The thing is, our government does not represent us. And even more importantly, the things that we deal with that the government should, in fact, be at least a part of, They drop the ball on these things just so consistently. And on top of that, we as a nation, we as a people are just scattershot and panic stricken and running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And you may say what you will about that opinion, but the fact is, the kind of people that came together, that pulled together, that went overseas to fight, or stayed here at home and built the armaments we needed to win, those people during that era, World War II, those people are gone. We are not those people anymore. As a matter of fact, just given how we've been behaving since the pandemic came upon us, if we were the ones that were there when World War II came along, we'd all be speaking Germanese right now. But let's just look at some of the recent things we've had to deal with. There is the pandemic, panic, empty shelves, just a total lack of cohesion among us. There was no, let's get together and figure this thing out and let's beat it. We, as the country that was rated in 2019 by John Hopkins as being the country most capable of withstanding a pandemic, came out worst among all of the countries when you weigh all of their relative capacities. We should have beat this thing down from the get-go. There shouldn't have been the problems that we had to suffer. We had to suffer them. And it's bad enough that our government dropped the ball so far, so quickly. But it's even worse that we as a people couldn't just say, okay, these jerks that don't represent us, what do you expect? This is what they're like. But we can figure this out. We don't have to panic. We don't have to fight. We don't have to act like idiots. But what did we do? We panicked. We fought. We acted like idiots. Then there was that cold snap in Texas. Oy vey. Don't know how many people died in that one. But, that never should have happened. Come on, Texas. They've got all that energy, and they can't figure out how to winterize it and make it work when they're going to need it most. What are you people, stupid? Well, yes, they're stupid. Ted Cruz, stupid. Abbott, stupid. Former Colorado City, Texas Mayor Tim Boyd faced extreme backlash after he made comments criticizing citizens for not preparing for the winter storm and stating, "The strong will survive and the weak will perish." He resigned following the controversy. We'll come back to that idea because I actually think he's got a good point. I don't think as a politician or as someone who's supposed to govern, he's got a good point. That's about the stupidest thing you could say in that situation. But the reality is, you cannot rely on government. You better start preparing. We'll get back to that. Okay, I already mentioned Ted Cruz. I can't find the exact quote. I can't find any quote, in fact, as to what Governor Abbott said, but it was something along the lines of, you people got to fend for yourselves. You can't rely on us. And yeah, that's a huge paraphrasing, but that was the gist of it. Hey, we're the government. You can't count on us. You got to figure this out yourself. Okay, we know where we stand. These people do not represent us. They are not the government of the United States. They are the government of the elite, whom, just keep getting richer as our dollars go less and less far all the time. We know where we stand. This is our country. We have no government. We need to figure out when TSHTF what we're going to do, because they're not going to be there for us. But to give you an idea of what could be done when people are pulling together and doing the right thing, Beto O'Rourke was calling seniors. He called like 700, not he himself, but he pulled together the resources to call 780,000 seniors to find out how they were doing, to see what they needed. AOC went down there and actually was doing volunteer work while raising money. Matthew McConaughey raised over $7 million for Texas. Beyonce, Reese Witherspoon. There's a lot of good people out there who are willing to do what it takes to help their fellow man. And I think anybody would agree, yeah, that's how we should behave towards each other. That's how we should act. But how often do we actually practice that? And part of the problem is government does what it can to divide communities and keep them from getting together and acting within and acting for their own interests, because that does not fill the interests of the government. That's a whole nother video, though, and that will be coming up. To continue on this, the California wildfires and the Midwest drought, how many died there? How much food production have we lost? I mean, we're starting to see shortages somewhat because of supply chain issues, but some of that also is the weather. And what dictates the weather? Climate. I wonder what's going on with climate. Well, we all know what's going on with climate. that multi-state series of tornadoes, especially the one that ripped through Kentucky and left power outages for hundreds of thousands of people, and that left Rand Paul begging for money from the government to help his people out, which I can appreciate that. Yes, you absolutely should be doing that. But this is the guy who, when other people were suffering in other states, would rip their elected officials for asking the government for money, basically saying, that's not what the government's for. The government isn't here to give money to people in need. That's not what we do. Again, that idea of compassion should be socialist in nature, from those according to their ability to those according to their need. And when you consider that most of the poor states that are getting federal dollars are red states, whereas most of the rich states that are giving those dollars to the federal government to go to the poor states are blue states. So you've got states like Kentucky, you've got states like Texas that are consistently getting federal dollars, which the government is getting from blue states. So there's a lot of hypocrisy here, but that will be a whole nother video in and of itself. But we have already established our representatives are not our representatives. They do not represent us. That very word, represent, that means when we elect them, they're supposed to go to Washington and do our bidding, basically. So we don't have to vote on every single issue. So we don't have to spend the time considering every piece of legislation that's offered up. That's their job. But they're supposed to do it per what our desires are. They don't do that. They do not represent us. They are called representatives, but that is a misnomer. It is called the United States government, but that is a misnomer. There actually is no United States government. There is a government that does the bidding of the elite, but that's where it ends. Yes, they are the government of the United States, but they are not the government of we the people. It is just a Potemkin village. It doesn't even really exist except in name. And upon that same line of reasoning, our capitalism, let me do this, our capitalism is not, in fact, capitalism. Not a free market capitalism. It is an incredibly corrupt cronyism based on capital, so it's kind of a form of perverse capitalism, but it is not free market capitalism. Let's face it, when you are giving subsidies to certain individuals and industries, when you are giving bailouts to certain individuals or companies or industries, you, meaning the federal government, you are deciding who are the winners and losers, who are the benefactors of this capitalism. So it is not, in fact, free market capitalism that exists as this economic system that decides who succeeds and who fails. Yeah, there's a lot of that in our system, but to a greater degree because the ones who have the most money and pull the most strings per they have the most money and the most power in our country are decided more or less by the government. At this point, if the government went to Elon Musk and said, all the subsidies that your companies have gotten from us, well, we want all that money back, and we want it to come out of your bank account, he would be broke right now. These so-called creators and innovators and these job creators, that's all a bunch of bullshit. That is just on paper and from talking heads on YouTube or in government or what have you. This is not the reality. But I would just like to end this by saying we are living in Novueval times, and growth is rebellion. They want you to stay small. In order for them to succeed, they need your complicity. I thank you for watching, and if you didn't watch, well, what's wrong with you, man? Talk to you soon.